Good evening to honorable guests and members of the floor. Welcome to our forum on exploitation of children happens more to girls than boys. Today we are very much honored to have different panelists joining us today in this forum. Our first panelist is Miss Nur Dania Humaira binti Muhammad Asman, a psychologist at Petaling Bahagia Health Clinic.
Hi and hello everyone. Thank you for having me in this forum.
Thank you for attending, Miss Dania. Panelist number 2 is Miss Nur Shuhada binti Nur Hisham, a doctor at Hospital University Kebangsaan Malaysia, HUKM.
Hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this forum.
Thank you for joining us today, Doctor. Our third panelist for today is Mr. Lee Zhao Hong, a teacher working at SMK Air Putih, Kuantan, Pahang.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all, yeah?
Pleased to meet you as well. And last but not least, Ms. Nurul Ifa binti Shari, a police officer in law enforcement attached to the Bangi police station.
Thank you, Miss Moderator. I am honored to be here today. And hi, everyone.
Hello, and thank you so much for lending your time and joining us in this forum for today. Let's go into a serious mood as we are going to talk about the exploitation of children. Now, what does that actually mean? According to the Oxford Dictionary, dictated in 2023, a child is a young human being below the age of puberty or below the legal age of majority. As for exploitation, it is a situation in which somebody treats somebody else in an unfair way, especially in order to make money or sexual benefits from their work. Child exploitation is the act of using a minor child for profit, labor, sexual gratification, or some other personal or financial advantage. Child exploitation often results in cruel and harmful treatment of the child, as the activities he or she may be forced to take part in can cause emotional, physical, and social problems. Sexual objectification contributes to gender stereotypes that normalize violence against girls. So, what about the boys? These stereotypes are not only harmful for girls, but as well for boys. Exploitation of children happens to both girls and boys, and today we will be looking into it from different point of views. Let's get into it. To panelist number 1, Ms. Dania, do you agree that exploitation of children happens more to girls than boys?
Thank you, Miss Moderator, for the question. For the question, I do agree that exploitation of girls happens more to girls than boys. Why I say like this is because as a psychologist, in my point of view and from my experience, there is a lot of girls come to me to seek for consultation from psychologists and they share their problem with me.
I see. So you have a lot of experience in dealing with these girls. So how does exploitation of children happen to these girls?
Okay, how does it happen is because first is about the gender stereotype and social norms. As we know, gender stereotypes appear to be flexible and responsive to changes in the social environment. Consensual belief about men's and women attributes have evolved throughout the decade, reflecting changes in women participation in the labor force and higher education. Perception of gender equality in competence and intelligence have sharply risen, and stereotypically, perception of women shows significant changes. Perception of women competence and intelligence have supposed those relative to men, while the communion aspect appears to have shifted towards being even more polarized on being typical women. Other aspects, such as perception of agency being more typical of men, have remained stable. So several analyses of television programs have also shown how representation of men and women are very often consistent with gender stereotype. Girls were often portrayed as focusing more on their appearance The same focus on aesthetic was found in sports new coverage.
Thank you, Ms. Dania, for that insight. I think we all get to understand how does this exploitation happen to girls. Now over to panelist number two, Dr. Shuhada. Do you agree that exploitation of children happens more to girls than boys?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Miss Moderator, for giving me an opportunity to answer your questions. And yes, I am agreed that exploitation happen more to girls because the number of girls who receive treatments at my hospital are higher than boys.
I see. So can you share with us what are the impacts of the girls who face this exploitation?
I will start with my first point for the impact, which is the girl's unstable mental state. The most common forms of violence against women and girls are domestic abuse and sexual violence. And victimization is associated with an increased risk of mental disorders. The girls that experience this traumatic event have a possibility of getting depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, or the most common is PTSD, which is post-traumatic disorder. The next impact that the girls might be facing is unsafe abortion. Girls and women who become pregnant as a result of forced sexual intercourse often terminate their pregnancy whether or not safe abortion is available. As an example, the girls might be afraid to tell the truth to their families because of the consequences that they might face, so they choose to abort their baby dangerously. The last impact is the possibility of the girls getting HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. Studies from many high and low income settings, such as World Health Organization (WHO), have found that women who are HIV positive are more likely than the other women to have experienced physical and sexual violence. This issue is hard to solve because the girls are afraid to take a health test because of the traumatic events such as rape cases that will ruin their family names or dignity.
Thank you, doctor. I see that we can see this in a medical point of view, knowing that it's not only physical effects, but also mental effects. Thank you so much. On to panelist number three, Mr. Hong. Do you agree that exploitation of children happens more to girls than boys?
Hi everyone, and thank you, Miss Moderator. Disagree with the question that asking by moderator, which is I don't think so because in as a recording in my school as a PKI so far there are some cases happens exploitation towards for the boys, not only girls. Yeah.
I see. So, can you explain further on why does this exploitation happen to boys?
Okay, thank you, Miss Moderator. Okay, for the first impact I'll be sharing to you guys is gender norms and expectations. So it means that problematic belief about masculinity, which force boys to be stronger and unaffected and able to protect themselves, okay, in the face of violence. So this will put the boys in at risk, and they will keeping themselves in a silent stage, and which means will affect their mental health, yeah, and will bring them trauma that not to be voiced out when they're facing problems. And in school, you always will heard teachers call out boys who carry help me to carry this book or carry these all things that this not happens to girls. It shows that like gender in gender not equality, yeah, and always people will think that when it happens to boys, it's just a punch in the face, nothing serious. Then they will think boys will recover quickly, but in fact of the statements that showing in the public is boys also need to be that they are taking their mental health. Okay. Moving on to my second impact, my point is inadequate identifications and protections, which is means that laws enforcement and other authorities do not perceive boys and men as victims. Okay, for examples, the Malaysian Department of Justice cautioned that this false assumptions is pretty proper screening and protection for males victims of human trafficking. To extend that boys and men's males victims there are potential trafficking as a victim, there's a false perceptions according to the Malaysian of Justice, Department of Justice, and that males victims are only exploited for labor or that their involvement or in commercial sex is always voluntary. Okay, moving on to my third, which is the last impact, which is lack of access to quality education in many areas in Malaysia, which is Sabah or Sarawak, they are still not quite tough like Kuala Lumpur. The school are either inaccessible or of poor quality or loss of connections, making it more likely or for boys to be sent work or instead of school. And not only Malaysian, other country also happens facing same problem as Malaysia. Okay, uh, so their family can't afford for their children. So their family will send boys to go working instead of sending them to school for education for finding education. So if their families got boys, they will send it to be to working at any work, but not sending girls to work. So it's like not fair to the boys. Yeah, and some of the issues it shows that some families maybe they are not their father and mother is not can't afford them to school, so it's very stressful. The last chance like their families, the only ways that can let their families do is just send their children to go and work. So this is my point, and thank you very much.
Thank you for the insightful information. I do see that gender stereotypes are a thing these days, especially in 2024. We still implement gender stereotypes, although it's in a more discreet way. So now on to question number 4 to panelist Miss Ifa. Do you agree that the exploitation of children happens more to girls than boys?
Thank you, Miss Moderator, for the question. I have to disagree with the statement because, from my experience working in child protection and exploitation cases, while it is widely recognized that girls are often the victims of exploitation, the suffering of boys in this context is frequently underreported and misunderstood.
I see. So, since you have such a long number of years of experience, can you elaborate how does this exploitation happen to boys?
Before I begin, allow me to give a brief explanation about child exploitation in law enforcement. So, according to the latest reports from UNICEF and other child protection organizations, while girls are often highlighted in cases of sexual exploitation, boys also face significant risks. For instance, in some regions, boys represent up to 20 to 30% of child sexual exploitation victims. The invisibility of boys in these statistics is often due to societal stigma and a lack of reporting mechanism. And how does exploitation happen to boys? It can happen in sexual exploitation in many ways, including being forced into prostitution, being used in production of child pornography, and being abused within institutions like school and where boys were lured through online gaming platform. And the causes of it also can happen at street exploitation, which boys are multifaceted and often interlinked with broader social, economic, and systematic issues. Many children on the streets are exploited for economic reasons. They are being forced into begging, scavenging, and selling goods on the street by adults who exploit their vulnerability. The money that they earn is often taken by these adults, leaving the children in a cycle of poverty and dependency. Boys are also often exploited for labor, as what Mr. Hong mentioned. They are exploited for labor in hazardous conditions, including agriculture, mining, construction, and manufacturing. They are being forced to work long hours in dangerous environments without proper compensation and safety measures. It was found that boys as young as 10 years old were working in the mining industry, often under dangerous conditions and for minimal pay. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Moderator.
Yes, it very much did. I think the information that given has widened my perspective and also members of the floor on knowing that boys are also treated this way. And it's very much sad to know that they are suffering in this manner. Now, on to question number 5 to panelist number 1. Can you share with us where does this exploitation, especially on your part for girls, happen? On to you, Miss Dania.
Yes, sure. Okay, for the where does this exploitation take place? Obviously, first and foremost, it came from the media that we can see, such as reality TV show, such as Toddlers and Tiara TV show. Like we can see throughout social media platform and reality TV, ordinary people are given an outlet to create a window into their life, blogging, daily activities, or having their lifestyle film on the world. While this can serve as a vehicle of communication and connection on the internet, sometimes the act of publishing one life quickly becomes menacing and is also expose those girls to exploitation. As we can see from the TV show Toddlers and Tiara, from the TLC, and if I'm not mistaken, it is a comedy show. But each episode takes the audience through the journey of pageant preparation, the beautification process, the pageant itself, as it was behind the scene drama along the way. And although the purpose of the show might seem innocent and cute, many issues involving child exploitation have arisen from the perspective or of particular parents. The toddlers on the TV show live a completely different life compared to the most ordinary children who devote to the early years of their life to playing, learning, and socializing. Other than that, also from the social media like Instagram, TikTok, and others, their parents also expose their child to unknown people, and it is dangerous for the girls itself because one of it, the girls are always been an object of sexualization. I hope that it answers your question.
Yes, it did. I believe that all panelists can agree with me that social media plays a very important role. Be it good or bad, it still plays a very definite and valid role in especially children's life. Be it in television or online, everything that we see that even children see, they implement and they are prone to being exploited through these acts. Which leads me to my next question from Dr. Shuhada. What solutions can we create to help these girls that have been exploited?
Thank you, Miss Moderator. As a doctor, the solution for the impact that I have stated just now for the girls that had unstable mental state is by doing psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is basically a talk therapy that involve trained mental health care professionals to help identify and work through the factors that are affecting our mental health or maybe triggering your mental health condition. As for the unsafe abortion, the doctor can perform an emergency procedure which is dilatation and curettage (DNC). Any unsafe abortion need to be treated with antibiotics along with evacuations of any remaining pregnancy tissue from the uterus as soon as possible at any hospital with this procedure to make sure the girls are safe. And the last solution, doctors play a big role in encouraging girls to seek HIV testing, counseling, or services, including services for preventing the transmission of HIV to infants. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I believe that you have stated solutions that are for precaution and as well as for those who have been exploited. And I also see your point of view, especially in physical and mental issues that happen to these girls. And we actually have a role to play, and especially as doctors, you are able to help these girls in mentally preparing them as well as physically healing them. So thank you so much, Doctor. On to my seventh question to panelist number 4, Miss Ifa. Where does this exploitation of boys take place?
Thank you, Miss Moderator. So, as what I have mentioned, boys can be sexually exploited in institutions like schools, orphanages, and juvenile detection centers by staff or other authority figures. Predators often use social media, gaming platforms, and chat rooms to groom boys. And how do they do it? They build trust over time, they manipulate and coerce boys into sharing explicit images and videos. In severe cases, boys are coerced into meeting in person and leading to physical abuse. I would also like to address that exploitation on boys also happen in tourist hubs in both developed and developing countries that attract street connected children who may be exploited for begging and force, like what I have mentioned earlier. So this occurs in cities across the globe, from major capitals to smaller resort towns, even in wealthier countries. Street exploitation on boys can occur, often in marginalized urban areas or among migrant communities where socioeconomic vulnerability is high. This includes cities in North America, Europe, and also some parts of Asia. And the most common exploitation that occurs to boys is what I have mentioned earlier is labor exploitation that happen in countries like in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, where boys are often employed in textile factories under poor working conditions, and also happen in countries like Mexico, Guatemala, and Brazil, where boys work in agriculture, particularly in the production of coffee, sugarcane, and other crops.
Thank you so much for that insight. I believe that we as community believe that boys are prone to get labor exploitation, but we do not see that they are actually exploited for sexual exploitation as well. And as we can agree with panelist number 1, Ms. Dania has mentioned that social media is a platform, and as well as panelist number 4 is mentioning that social media, even in gaming sort of platforms, boys are also vulnerable to being exploited. So thank you so much for that information. And on to my last question for panelist number 3. Mr. Hong, as a teacher, what solutions do you suggest to take in handling this issue, especially in withholding that boys are too exploited?
Okay, thank you, Miss Moderator. Okay, I will share you three solutions, which is the first one. I would think that we should, as a teacher, we should implement educational program that challenge harmful gender norm and promote healthy concepts of masculinity. As a teacher, I think teachers have to recognize and address harmful gender norm and have to foster an inclusive environment for students. Teachers need to always alert their students to not be exploitations or be biased or what. Um, this might help to build up a very nice environment for school. Okay. For my second solution, which is we have to provide specialized training for law enforcement, health, and criminal justice personnel on identifying and protecting male trafficking victims. As a teacher, we we should discuss with school or our school to use some interactive methods such as workshop, case studies, or role playing scenarios, or even online forum like this, our forum, um, to encourage participants to join and reinforce learning. This might help to reduce the case of exploitation in school or everywhere or in home or what. In yeah, and for my last and but not least, the solution is improving the overall quality of education, which is increase the chance of students staying in school and succeeding. Um, as a teacher, I think teacher might have to join some NGO program like Isaac. They are promoting some program that going as a volunteer teacher going out overseas to teach the student that might not afford to go into school. So there's like 1 month or 2 months, not too sure, but the NGO is providing this program to help the student at the rural area get education and help them to not be far away from the student that get education from school. Yeah, and that's all for me. The solution, and I hope that it will help you guys and everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hong. I think we have heard so much of new information as well as information that are very fundamental in showing that exploitation of children is real and it's happening around us, whether we know it or not. And we as a community of different backgrounds must come together in helping handling exploitation of children. So thank you so much that we have points of view from a psychologist, from a teacher, from a doctor, and as well as an officer of the law. Now, the purpose of this forum is to build on and hopefully take forward existing system focused work to end child sexual abuse and exploitation. Much is already done, and we can see this through humanitarian assistance programs. Now, these programs are designed and delivered not only to us to risk to control the risk of the sexual exploitation and abuse, but also to provide the necessary response when this situation happens. No matter the circumstances, every child has the right to be protected from violence. Agreed, panelists? Yes?
Yes, agreed.
All right. So child protection system cannot only see through the children's abuse, but they help to connect children to vital social services and fair justice systems, starting even at birth. It doesn't matter if it's girl or boys. They provide care to the most vulnerable, including children uprooted by conflict or disaster, victims of child labor or trafficking, and those who live with even disabilities that are used for financial exploitation. So we can see this even through the acts of UNICEF. Is everyone well known of UNICEF? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So they are used to protect children, meaning protecting their physical, their psychological needs, and even their mental health needs. So thank you so much for joining us in this forum. It is true that exploitation of children happens to all children. Now it's up to the members of the floor to decide whether it happens more to girls than boys. But however, we all play a role in helping to abolish this exploitation. Every child deserves to live a life of good intentions. However, we have to play our part. It doesn't matter if we are coming from different backgrounds or different point of views, we can be there for children. We can be there as support systems. So thank you so much, honorable guests, for joining us in this forum. We have learned a lot, and I believe that we can apply this in future to come. So thank you so much, and see you again.